The theatre of international diplomacy is interesting because the real work, the hard work, is done by the civil servants, so working behind the scenes, but the identity and the impressions are generated by the main actors. And in the case of Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin, there's the self-styled dealmaker and the master of obfuscation locked in a dance that has profound consequences for Ukraine, for Europe, for the international order. And the Trump-Putin calls, hailed in some circles as steps towards peace, are in reality little more than trumpery. And what is trumpery? It's deception, it's trickery, it's showy nonsense. Mr. Trump is very well named. Trump's approach to diplomacy has always mirrored his business ethos, as immortalized in The Art of the Deal, a book that was ghostwritten by somebody else. As Tony Schwartz, that ghostwriter, noted, Trump's modus operandi involves flattery, coercion, and a calculated detachment from truth. It's no surprise, then, that the two sides emerged from their latest call with wildly different accounts. The White House claimed an agreement had been reached on a 30-day halt to strikes on energy infrastructure, supposedly paving the way to a broader ceasefire. Yet the Kremlin's readout reveals a different reality. Putin rejected a full ceasefire, demanded an end to all foreign military aid to Ukraine, and insisted on the removal of what he calls the root causes in the conflict, a thinly veiled demand for Zelensky's removal and Ukraine's effective surrender. Of course, the question has to be what language was being employed in this telephone call, or were Trump and Putin talking through intermediaries? So much can get lost in translation. By engaging in direct negotiations with Putin without Ukraine's full participation, or semi-direct negotiation, Trump effectively sidelines Zelensky, the one person who can actually understand Putin. The Ukrainian leader, once lauded as a Churchillian figure of defiance, is now reduced to a supplicant, forced to accept whatever crumbs Washington and Moscow decide to offer. When Ukraine mildly resisted the terms Trump was pushing, American support collapsed and was withheld, and Putin took advantage. Meanwhile, when Putin refused to engage in a full ceasefire, Trump's response was a warm invitation to future economic deals and even ice hockey games between the US and Russia. This isn't an equitable engagement. Putin is given significantly more opportunities than Zelensky. The contrast is stark. Trump bullies Ukraine while indulging Russia, reinforcing the idea that his administration is willing to sell out Kyiv in order to placate Moscow. And the implications are catastrophic, not only for Ukraine's sovereignty, but for America's credibility as a security guarantor. For Europe, the calls confirm their worst fears, that Trump, if left unchecked, will abandon the continent to face Russia alone. The chasm between European security needs and Trump's America First doctrine is widening, and leaders across the continent are drawing their own conclusions. Germany, traditionally hesitant about military expansion, has pledged to ramp up defense spending significantly, with Berlin embracing a more assertive role. Poland, already one of the highest military spenders in NATO, is openly debating the acquisition of nuclear weapons. Even Austria, long committed to neutrality, finds itself reconsidering its strategic position. Across Brussels, London, and Paris, officials are realizing that the US security umbrella is no longer guaranteed or effective. The EU is loosening debt restrictions to allow for large-scale rearmament, and discussions on European strategic autonomy, long championed by France but dismissed as a Gallic fantasy, are now being treated with urgency. This is about more than just Ukraine. Trump's erratic diplomacy has sent a chilling message to allies worldwide. US commitments are no longer reliable. NATO, once the bedrock of Western security, is being hollowed out by distrust. If Washington can so easily consider selling out Ukraine, why should Taiwan, South Korea, or even European nations trust America's guarantees? This was in the Soviet playbook, to fracture the solidarity of NATO, and Trump has achieved it in 7 weeks. Moreover, by failing to hold Putin accountable, Trump is emboldening authoritarian actors globally. Beijing is watching closely, as are Tehran and Pyongyang. If the US will not defend Ukraine, a nation to which it has provided billions in aid and weaponry, then what faith can smaller nations have in American promises of protection? As Putin continues to stall and manipulate the negotiations, Trump appears eager to hand over Ukrainian assets and territory in a premature and hollow peace agreement. This isn't a deal, it's capitulation masquerading as diplomacy. Oh, we'll look after your nuclear power stations. Yeah, until you give them to Russia. For Europe, the path is clear. They must prepare for a world where the US is no longer the ultimate security backstop. They must invest in their own defense, strengthen NATO independently of Washington, and ensure that Ukraine continues to resist Russian aggression, even if America walks away. Meanwhile, Trump risks exposing himself as a weak leader beholden to Putin's tactics. The optics of these calls are already damaging. Should Ukraine collapse under Trump's tenure, history will remember Trump as the president who abandoned democracy for the illusion of a deal. Trump is left with his trousers down. As I say, he has risked exposing himself, and I look forward to the cartoonist's take on this next Sunday. As the Marxist philosopher Antonio Gramsci wrote, "The old world is dying, and the new world struggles to be born. Now is the time of monsters." Trump's diplomacy, riddled with contradictions and concessions to authoritarianism, has unleashed new global monsters. The question is whether Europe can rise to meet this monarch-like spectacle. My natural instinct for optimism is challenged.